All right, so we're going to wrap up our unit on polynomials with something called factor by grouping, which may be the easiest really factoring that we do, and you'll see why in just a moment. But the good news is it really just incorporates some of the things we've already talked about, all right, and it's really just a big review of what we're doing. So now, to get to that, we have an opener here. So we have two problems for you to do here, all right, just once again, just continue the factoring. Now, so I want you to factor both problems here, all right, so both quadratics. Now, once again, you need to get in the habit, all right, of always looking for that GCF first before you get into your factor pattern. So go ahead, pause the video, do those two problems, flip it back on, and we'll see how you did. All right, so here's my work. All right, and so on our first problem, you can see that there's no GCF here. All right, so we can go right into our factor pattern, right? So we know 8x squared goes in the first box, 5 goes in the second box. And then we know, all right, that if I do a times c, so 8 times 5 is 40. And we know we have to find two things that add to be our b term, which is negative 22. And so that would be negative 20x and negative 2x. And then if you can see, if we do our GCF in our rows and our columns, all right, you should get to 2x minus 5 times 4x minus 1. Okay, now moving to the second one. Now, we did have a GCF in this problem because I can take a 3, all right, out of all three terms, and that gets you from 18x squared minus 33x minus 6 to 3 times the quantity 6x squared minus 11x minus 2. And then once again, we drop our a term in the first box, all right? This should be a negative 2 here. Let me pause and correct that real quick. All right, sorry about that. I had to just wrote an extra 1 in there, but it should be a minus 2 here. And then if we do a times c, so 6 times negative 2 is negative 12. So we have to find two factors of negative 12 that add to be our b term this time, which is negative 11x. All right, and that would be negative 12x and a positive 1. And then once again, if we factor out our GCFs, all right, okay, you should get to 3. Now remember, anytime you have a GCF, you have to bring that down in front, and then x minus 2 times 6x plus 12. Okay, so that's our factor pattern. Now, notice when we do this, right, we have to have 4 terms in our box. Now, here's why I say this might be the easier part of the factoring that we do this year, because when you go down to example 1 here, all right, okay, notice now we have a cubic polynomial because now our highest power is 3. So notice everything we've done so far really, is mainly dealing with quadratic expressions. But now we go to a cubic expression. And notice they have 4 terms. Well, if we think about our area model, we have 4 boxes. So this is why it's a little bit easier because we don't have to do, all right, the multiplying a times c and try to find that combination to get those middle terms because we have 4, all right, pieces already. Now, once again, we still have to look for that GCF before we get into that factor pattern. So when I look at number 1 here, all right, there are no x's I can take out of all 4 terms, all right, because the last term doesn't have an x. When I look at my constants, this is 1, all right, so that means I can't factor anything else out if one of my, all right, constants or coefficients is 1. So now what we want to do is just drop everything into our box. So x cubed goes here, minus 6x squared goes here, 8x, and then negative 48, or negative 48, I should say. And now it's just like what we have already finished here, right? So now we've already set up the area model. So now we're just going to go column by column, row by row, and find that GCF. So when I look at my first column here, all right, my GCF for that first column would just be x. When I look at my second column, they're both negative, so I can take out a negative. They can both, all right, I can take 6 out of both 6 and 48. There are no x's common, so I can't take out any x's. Now when I go to my first row, all right, my coefficient here is 1, which means there's nothing else I can factor out. But notice there's 3 x's here and 2 x's here, which means I can take out 2 x's. And then when I look at my second row here, all right, I have 8 and 48. Well, I can take an 8 out of both of those numbers. All right, so now I'm already in my factor, all right, pattern there. So x minus 6 times x squared plus 8. Now, once again, when you're looking at your numbers like 8 and 48 here, right, we always want to start with the smallest coefficient and just think about the ways we can multiply, right, to get to 8. All right, and then I can kind of go, and I want to go from the biggest factor to the smallest factor. And if I look, 8 goes into 48, and I'm done. So I know that's my GCF. So remember, you can always write out those factors of your smallest coefficient, all right, and then work from the biggest to smallest to find that GCF. Okay, let's move on to problem 2. Now, once again, all right, I have my cubic here, my cubic polynomial. I have 4 terms, and once again, when I look, right, if one of my coefficients is 1, there's no GCF to pull out of the whole thing for my numbers. And then if they don't all contain an x, I can't pull an x out. So there's no GCF here, so I can go right into dropping my terms into my area model, which I just did there. Now, once again, I'm going to go column by column, row by row. So notice here, I have a 1 and a 7, so no GCF or GCF for my coefficients, but they do have one x in common. When I look at my second column here, right, I have a negative and I have a negative, right, so I can take that out. There are no x's in common. Now, once again, when I think about 7, there's only one way to multiply to get 7, 1 and 7. So I'm just going to take 7, and yep, 49 divided by 7 is 7, so I know I can take out a 7. All right, now moving, all right, to my first row here. Okay, there's a coefficient of 1 here, so there's nothing I can take out for my coefficients, but there are two x's in common, so I can take out x squared. And then moving here, I have 7 and 49 again, which I know because of what I did there, that I can take out a 7 there. And then now we are factored. So x minus 7 times x squared plus 7. And that's all it is. All right, so let's flip the page and let's go to problem 3 here. All right, now notice problem 3. All right, I have my 4 terms. All right, so as soon as I see 4 terms, I'm thinking factor by grouping. Now, what hopefully you also what you also notice about your numbers, right, is that they are all even. So minimum, if they're all even, we know we should be able to take out at least a 2 out. And if I look, here's my smallest coefficient, all right, and the only way to get to 2 is 1 and 2. So 2 is going to be my GCF here. And notice there's not x's common to all terms, so I'm just going to take out a 2. And I'm just going to do this above here just to make it give us a little bit more room here. So if I take a 2 out, that gives me 3x cubed plus x squared plus 18x plus 6. And once again, you know you're correct if you just distribute and it matches up, right? So you can always just kind of really quickly verify that. So I already know, right, I got a 2 as part of my factored form. Now we're back to what we just did. So I'm going to drop these 4 terms into my area model. All right, just like that. Okay, so when I look at my first column, right, I have one x in common, so I know I can take that out. Now, once again, I have 3 and 18, all right? So the only way to get to 3 is 1 times 3. 18 is also divisible by 3, so that's going to be my GCF. Here I have a coefficient of 1, so I don't have to worry about that, all right? And then that looks like it's it, right? So there's no x's in common. So if there's a 1 here, there's a 1 here. I can take that 1 out. So that is all I have. All right, moving to my first, oh, and this should be a 3 here. Sorry if that confused you guys. 3x cubed. Now, when I move to my first row here, right, I have 1 times 3, 1 times 1, so I can only take a 1 out, all right, but then I can take out two x's, so I get 1x squared. And when I look at my second row here, they don't both have x's in common. I don't have to worry about that, but 6, all right, goes into 18 as 6, and there's my factor. So I get 2 and then 3x plus 1 times x squared plus 6. And you're finished. All right, one more together here. All right, so once again, looking, all right, I have 4 terms, big indicator that we're going to do factor by grouping. All right, it's cubic. All right, another big indicator. And then once again, I'm looking for my GCF, and I can see that all my numbers are even. All right, my smallest coefficient is 2, so that's going to be my GCF. And there's not x's common to all 4 terms, so I don't have to worry about taking an x out as part of my GCF. So if I take that 2 out, all right, I get 5x cubed minus x squared plus 15x minus 3. All right, and then now what I can do, all right, I'm just going to put the 2 down here so I don't forget, and then I'm going to just drop all those terms into our area model. And hopefully you guys are seeing that this really is a lot of what we've been doing. All right, so now when I look at my first column, 5 goes into 5 and 15, so I can take a 5 out. They both have one x in common. In my second row here, they are both negative, all right, and they have 1 here and a 3 here, so it means my GCF has to be 1, and they don't have any x's in common, so I'm done there. Here, 1 and 5, 1 times 1, all right, so the only thing in common is a 1, but they both do have 2 x's in common, so I get 1x squared. And then when I look at my second row here, all right, I have 3, all right, it's my smallest coefficient here, and so I'm just going to look for 1 or 3, and 3 goes into both, so that's it, and there's no x's in common. And so there it is. All right, and that's all 3 there. Make sure it's readable. All right, so there you go. That's factor by grouping. All right, so once again, if you have any questions, something you don't understand, make sure you highlight those, write those questions down, bring those to class with you. We'll take care of you then. So, all right, I'll see you then.